Good morning. Just make sure. Okay, great. Good morning, everybody. Alrighty, so happy Easter. Well, it's not Easter yet. Happy the day between before Easter. I don't know if you celebrate Easter, but here in the Caribbean we do. On my island, just looking to see. On my island, we my volume was down. On my island, we celebrate Easter, and so it's a long weekend. Thankfully, um, for those of you who know, I am still in my 9 to 5, so I welcome the long weekend. I welcome it. And so today I won't be long. I wanted to pop in as a custom with our weekly chat. And the weekly chats are really geared towards if you didn't get the opportunity to catch up in the week on the content that I put out, whether it was the Wavelength Wednesdays videos, or just the long form content that I put out. The weekly chat is really just a touch point for you to get an idea of what a summary of what I spoke about in the week. It's not actually the very same things, but it is along the theme of what I would have spoken about um, in the week. And so and so here we are today. This week, I spoke about values and how important it is in knowing what your value is. And so I didn't introduce myself. So before I get started, my name is 𝐓𝐡𝐞. I am a leadership coach and I help new managers and also managers who are transitioning um, develop leadership influence. And I focus on two areas. I focus on your communication and your work relationships, which are critical um, uh, things in your leadership journey. These two things will never ever go away. You will always have to forge new relationships and work on relationships because people are different, right? In every stage and phase of your career, it's going to be a different up leveling and a different requirement of you. And so if you learn the basics, then you're gonna be fine. Um, and as well as your communication, which can only get better in time if you work at it. All right. And so that is what I help you do. And if you are interested in joining, in working with me, if you've seen the content and you need the help, then please look at the link in the bio on Facebook. I'm still going to call it a bio. On the About section, you can schedule a call with me. And so we can I can get a feel of what your needs are to see if you're the right fit um, or if you want to have a preview of what the program is about, it's called Communicator Influence, and it is based on my website. It is hosted on my website, and that is what I do. So let's get into it. So this week, I'm speaking about values and how important knowing what your values are, understanding that, knowing what's important to you, because for many of us, we kind of we somehow maybe stumbled into the job that we're in. If you're anything like me, like earlier on in my career, I had no idea that I would be an HR professional. So if you don't know, my background is in human resources. I love all things human resources. And the people's brand is really just an extension of that love, because I love seeing people grow and develop. I think that's a part of HR that I truly enjoy, just really helping people to be a better version of themselves through the work that they do, right? That is how I see my role in HR. And so the people brand is just an extension of that. But if you're anything like me, like I was saying, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what my gifts were. I didn't know what um, my talents were. I just really didn't consider myself having a talent. And then I was fortunate enough to be directed to a company, Marriott International, and it was there that the passion for people and growing and development was born. Like, it was unearthed, I should say. It was unearthed, because looking back, I've always been a learner. But so if you're anything like, if you've had that experience, you sort of stumble into your job, yet here you are, you're in a management role, or you've just taken on a management role, or maybe you want to take on a management role. And so I want to really stress and say that you have to know what your values are. You have to understand what is important to you. And I'm going to explain to you why. So there are a few values that come into play at work, right? And you have to understand what these are. And I'm wondering if I should just go into the situations. Um, I made my notes here, but I think I'm going to switch it up a little bit. Let me, before I get into all that, let me first say that if you don't know what your values are, that's okay. If you've never considered that question, what's important to you, that's okay. I will link. Um, I did a wavelength video on Wednesday, and I shared 3 questions that you can ask yourself so that you can get to understand what your value, what's important to you. And so some of the values that come into play when you're at work are values of integrity. That comes up a lot. And we see it all over the news where, leaders, companies are found out for being unethical. People have to go to court because they lied about something. And it's so interesting to me that um, these things that we were taught as children. I don't know if you guys ever went to Sunday school. Um, in the Caribbean, Sunday school is a big thing. You always hear this. We were taught this thing that said, "Speak the truth and speak it ever, cost you what you will. He who hides the wrong he did does the wrong thing still. Though God sees me." I used to say that, and it's so funny that even as you progress throughout life, that these things are important, like telling the truth, speaking your truth, right? Um, and even speaking your truth as a person, because you're not authentic if you're not doing that, right? So integrity is a huge one at work. Respect is one that comes up a lot. Family is one that come up a lot, right? Your personal time, and growth and development is one that comes up a lot. And you have to understand which ones are important. And for you, everything, all of these may be important to you, right? But the interesting thing about values is you can have more than one values. That's okay. You can have more than one uh, sort of thing that is in stuff that is important to you. That's okay. But you have to understand where it falls, where it ranks in your life. And you have to also understand your values, the value system of your team, like what's important to your team. You have to understand what's important to your boss. So you may have a boss that has a value, maybe they family is important to them, career is important to them. Oh, this is another one, and I forgot. power, right, is important. Recognition is important as a value. Power, there's a lot of people that power is important to them, and these are people who are driven and ambitious. And depending on the situation, you may think that this person probably doesn't have any heart because maybe they work long hours, maybe they push you. But for you, your number one, what ranks higher for you on your value scale is family. So you need that time to go when it's your child's birthday or it is some family thing happening. It's important that you are there. And so it's important when we get into jobs, when we get into roles, that we communicate what's important to us, or we understand what's important to us, and we understand what's important to the people that we report to, so that there's a balance, so that we understand. I think a lot of the times we don't understand what's important to people. It's not that they're bad people, right? But we are viewing them through our lens. We are judging them through our lens. We think that they have the same values, that not the same values, well, the same values too, but also the ranking of the values, it's the most important to them, right? And so again, it's important to know. So let me like kind of speak through a few situations that may come up in the workplace where you have to really, where your value dictates your behavior and your values come into play, because that's the other thing. Your values will drive your behavior and your actions. And if you're not in alignment with your value, then you're going to feel out of sync. It's going to cause you a lot of stress. So, for example, um, if you are in a work environment that is very driven, okay, that the value system or construct is about power, recognition. Maybe you work for a boss that it is very, it's about I shouldn't say, maybe, yeah, maybe you work for a boss that it's about power and recognition, and that's high on their value system. It doesn't mean family isn't important. It doesn't mean balance isn't important. It doesn't mean integrity isn't important, but they're all about power. That's the number one thing. They want to be highly recognized. Power is important to them. And so you would find that the way in which they communicate, the way in which they manage and lead, it's very it may not be in sync with you, who probably maybe you just married, maybe you have young children, maybe, yes, power is important to you, recognition is important to you, but it's not that important. Family is more important. And so you may have times where, you know, your boss, for example, calls you up and wants something by a certain time, or they may want to do certain things that position the department or themselves to look good or look a certain way or be perceived a certain way. And that's not in alignment with you. And you will find that if you don't understand that, and if you don't try to find common ground, and if you don't have a balance, or if you don't leave, you're going to stress out yourself. And that these are things that happen. And so you have to be really aware of what you are doing, and you have to be aware of who you are as a person. Like, people get into leadership roles and they don't realize and recognize they have to understand themselves. You have to understand what is important to you, what's important to you. And maybe it is that you're in a particular job and the values are out of sync with you, right? They're very driven, they're very ambitious. It's about power, it's about recognition, and everything else ranks low. But you have a family. Well, you'll have to make a decision. You have to decide, and not a hasty decision, right? But I think understanding helps with how we show up to work as well, right? So let me get, that was just, I'm all over the place today, but I'm talking through this. Um, so one of the situations, a situation that may come up as a leader when you get in leadership roles, the higher. your position, the higher up you climb in the corporate ladder, your integrity will always be questioned. Your integrity will come, it will be not questioned, it will be tested. It will be tested. And so you may find that someone comes to you wanting information from you in exchange for something else. I can't remember what the correct term is, but yeah, I remember what happened. I had this not incident, but I was approached by someone, um, and they were like, if you get me this contract, I will give you X, Y, and Z type of money. I will, you know, and I was in a position to influence that decision, um, but I chose not to. I chose not to because who can't do with more money, right? We all could do with more money. I don't care. Like, we all could do with more money. Let us be real. But you have to evaluate what's important to you. You have to evaluate what's important to you. Had I taken that person up on their offer, yeah, I would have gotten the money. But then I don't think I would have to live with myself. I would have to justify and explain to myself why I did that. If you understand what I'm saying, have you ever done something that you know that you not that you shouldn't do? Maybe it isn't wrong, but per se, maybe it isn't wrong, but it's not in alignment with where you're going, with who you are as a person, and you do it anyway. It happens a lot when we say yes when we really want to say no. Like if our friends want to go out, that's the simplest um one. Our friends want to go out, we know we're tired, but at the same time, they maybe guilt trip us, maybe we haven't been spending enough time, maybe we have our lives of our own, or maybe we just don't want to go, right? And we decide to say yes, and you just feel really icky. I don't know if it happens to you. Feel really icky inside. It's like I really should not have gone. I really should not have said yes. I should not have committed. That happens at that level. But as an influential leader, it is tested. That integrity, your integrity, is tested at every single level. Um, and I was not about to put myself in a position where I had to feel icky. I didn't want to do that. And it was not the right thing to do. And although I am not perfect, I am not perfect. Um, I just, sometimes we have that moment where there's a pause between making a decision that we have the option are the two angels. One is good, one is bad. One is saying yes, go for it. And the other one is saying no, don't do it, it's wrong. And so I opted not to. And so I want to say your integrity will be tested, right? The more you climb, it will be tested, and you have to be mindful of that. Oh, let me come in closer. You have to be mindful of that on your journey. You have to understand what's important to you. You have to know this, right? Um, another way another way that your values show up in your leadership is um, when you have to give feedback. When you have to give feedback and be honest and open with someone. And the values that show up is one, integrity. Um, Another one is respect, and another one is kindness. So when you have to give feedback to people, um, giving feedback as a leader sometimes is very difficult, especially if you don't have the skills and the tools to do so, which is why you're here on the People's Brand, which is why I created the Communicate to Influence programs. So just FYI, right? But if you don't have the proper tools um, to do so, or maybe you're not a courageous person, your values come into play with that. Courage is also a value, right? And so if you have to give someone feedback, how are you doing that? Somebody who is on a power trip, power is important to them. They may make that person, belittle that person, right? Somebody who has high integrity may be very direct with that person. Somebody who has kindness and respect, they may craft that that communication in a different, they may use different types of words so that person leaves that conversation feeling respected and heard, right? And so your values are always at work, and it dictates how you show up, which is why, again, you need to know what's important to you. Okay. um Power shows up. You hear me talk about power. Lots of people, you see power, the value of power at play a lot in politics. It also happens in business. People get into management and leadership roles and they are on a power trip. We use that a lot. And so if you are in, again, if you are an ambitious person, there's nothing wrong with that. I am an ambitious as well. There's nothing wrong with that. But power, some people, their value when their values, power is high in ranking on their, power ranks high on their value system, they're in a position to withhold or to grant things, right? That shows up there. That that value shows up. Higher up you go, or even as a leader, you have the ability to say, no, you're not going to get that schedule, right? You're not going to be off on that day. Or yes, you can leave early, or no. And a lot of people thrive on that. So be mindful. Maybe you're listening to me and you haven't really looked at it that way, but those are your values at play. Power, a sense of importance, right? For me, I don't even know if power that is in, maybe it's somewhere down on the scale. But for me, I know like having treating people fairly, justice. I don't know if it's liberal in me. Treating people fairly, treating people with respect, you know, caring about what people, how people show up to work. Those things are important to me. So power comes into play with that. The ability to grant or withhold, you know, things from persons. It also affects your values, also affect um, how you see people. So if you are someone who is high, has a high power ranking value, you may have others on your team, like family members that you, a single mom or even someone with a family, and you want to get things done, but you don't even acknowledge or care about what they have to do. All you know is you want to get this done and you want to get it done by yesterday. And you may be facing some resistance and you may not know why. Well, that's probably why, because you are leading and managing through the lens of your values. Your values are dictating your behavior. So you may want to take a step back and look at your team, understand who they are as people, and manage accordingly. It's the same way if you have a boss. You have to understand what's important to them. I have always done this throughout my career, and it has never failed me. I try to understand what is important to that person. I ask the question, what do you expect from me? Right? So I understand who I'm working with, because unless you're working for yourself, right, you have to work with other people. And it is in your best interest that that relationship works. We're not saying that you're going to love everybody and sing kumbaya with everybody that you work with, right? But it is in your best interest that you understand. Understanding, I feel, is the key um, to a lot of our issues, especially in the workplace. You don't have to agree, but if you understand, you can manage around that, or you can make a plan, or you can decide that, hey, this is not for me, and be guided accordingly, right? So um, your values shape that. Um, I think I mentioned that your values shape how you respond as well. So I just wanna kind of wrap it up and not beat the dead horse and just really share that you have to understand what your values are, what is important to you as a leader so that you can show up um, in the best way possible. That you have to understand that what is important to your team. Okay, people with families, people who, you know, want power and recognition. You may be managing someone who has a high wants, they're ambitious, and they seem to want to just do anything and everything to get ahead. And you have to honor that. You have to understand that. So how they work maybe differently. Maybe they're that person that tries to outshine everybody or tries to show some throw people under the bus. You have to understand how to work with someone like that. Can you put them to lead a project? Can you give them certain things to do? A lot of leading has to do with managing. Well, leading has to do with managing people. And so a lot of the times we get this twisted. We don't have to like a lot of things. We're not going to. We're not going to agree with everybody. We're not going to like a lot of things. But we must respect people and we have to work with the tools that we've been given. And a good leader understands that. And a good leader tries to excavate the best out of everyone. And sometimes that relationship works, and sometimes there are people that you have to part ways with, but that's okay. But understanding where, integrity and family and growth and development, that's another one. If that is high on someone's value system, then if you're going into a job that does not provide growth opportunities, they probably, maybe they're paying you a shitload of money, right? But if they're not providing opportunities for you, why are you taking that job? Why are you taking that job if there's no room for growth? Why are you taking that job? And these are just some things and decisions we make. Then you're going to be out of alignment because you're going to take the job because you want the money, but you're not going to be happy because you're driven, you're ambitious, you want to grow and develop. And these are things that we have to understand how we, you know, we have to think through these decisions. A lot of our pain and angst and frustration comes from ourselves and the decisions that we make. As an influential leader, we have to take a step back. We have to analyze. We have to understand who we are. I did a whole in February. If you can go back to February's content, I would encourage you to do so. I speak a lot about emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is first understanding how you and your emotions show, how you interpret things, how you affect people. And I think that there's a lot of value in that. You have to understand before you lead people, you have to understand, you must understand how you show up. You have to learn to lead you, right? And so values, this is very, very important because it really dictates how you lead, how you show up in the relationships at work, how you perceive certain people, right? How, we might say this person is greedy or this person slacks off because they're always leaving, but it could be their value system, what is important to them. And so I want to wrap it up. Thank you for joining me. I really hope that this gives you a lot to think about. And I'm going to link, like I mentioned, I'm going to link the video that I did on Wednesday about um, how to find what your values are, how to find what's important to you, I would encourage you strongly to really think about and do that exercise that gets you there. There's also on the internet, there's a lot of free tests that help you figure out what your values are. And so you can do that, but find out what they are so you can show up much better, so that you can lead in a much more effective way, so that you can understand your team and your boss and the people in your organization. And if you want to work with me, if you've been loving the content and you want to further, strengthen your leadership skills, please schedule a consultation call. I would love to have you in the Communicator Influence Coaching Program. It's a coaching program for new and or transitioning managers, and it's a 90-day program where we work together to get you the foundation that you want. All right, and so I will speak to you next week on another weekly chat. Happy Easter when it comes, if you celebrate it, and happy Saturday. Bye.